some persons don't know what is playing out within the southwestern region, precisely the Yoruba land. The battle for supremacy, of control of dominance within the Yoruba is what is playing out. For instance, let's start with how were they able to conquer the North, the Hausas precisely. The Hausas ethnic nationalities have their own culture, have their own style of government, has their own leaders, or what you call the traditional rulers or leaders within the Hausa ethnic nationality. We call them the Sarikis. Hausas has Sarikis, not emirs. Now, as Fulani's exclusive dominance and strategy continue to push on, they were able to sell the idea of Islam, propagating Islam to the point when they have their foot soldiers within the same Hausa ethnic nationalities. Some willing vessels, they begin to push for the overriding influence of religion against their own monarchical system in conflict with the Hausa traditional monarchical system. Now, rather than the Hausas paying allegiance to the Sarikis or the monarchical rulership within the Hausa clan, they are not paying allegiance to the caliphate, to the Sultan, who they believe controls the religious supremacy. So they now consider the religion as a yardstick of defining their supremacy, their allegiance, and loyalty. And this is sustained over decades. Hausa's indigenes begin to lose confidence in their monarchical system of leadership. That paved way for them to begin to oppose their own leaders, the Hausa Sarikis, paving way for the Fulanis to install their own emirates, monarchical system. Now they have used religion, pushing religion as a medium of exclusive dominance. They were able to control and subdue the Hausa monarchical system, which we know as Sarikis. Hausas have their Sarikis, just as Igbos has their Ezes. The Hausas, the Yorubas has their Obas. These are monarchical system and culture peculiar to a particular people. When they were able to succeed, exciting the Hausas to move against their Sarikis, they were killed with the collaboration of other Fulanis. They subdued the monarchical system of the Hausa, eroding their culture. Most of their culture begin to go into extinction, and they are replacing it with the Fulani culture and the system or monarchical system, which is known as the emirs. The absence of Sarikis is noticeable. Even in the Hausa communities, what you have now is the Fulanis, emirs. Even in the states, they are now in control. Of course, they have perfected that. Hausas have lost their culture. What is left for them is just the language. And if there is any way they could replace the Hausa language with the Fulani language, as possible as they consider that, it will be done. And the entire Hausa heritage will be swallowed up. Now, the same way with what is happening in the southwestern part of Nigeria today, I want you to pay clear attention. What is playing out is politics. Forget about the sentiment, religious sentiment, but religious sentiments is being pushed, is being fronted as a way of paving way for the dominance of the Fulani Caliphate, where the monarchical system of the Yoruba tradition will no longer be respected or will no longer control some level of command over the indigenous people of the Yoruba people, regardless of their religion. You know, regardless of their religion. Now, they understood when the Fulani influence begin to override the monarchical system of the Yoruba's ruler or leadership that are the custodians of the culture and the Yoruba heritage. You know, it means that the Obas, like the Oba of Ife and the rest of them, we begin to lose their control and lose their influence, which means whatever that should be decided now should be based on religion. Monarchical system has to do with culture, the installment, the preservation, and the custodian of the Yoruba cultures are the Obas and other respected Obaship within the Yoruba clan. Now, what they are trying to push with the advent of Sharia being sustained and sponsored by the Islamic Caliphate, which, of course, the Emir of Sokoto is the supreme leader of the Islamic Council and affairs within Nigeria. What does that mean? You know, it is not replaceable. It is an exclusive right of an average Fulani man, precisely in Sokoto. The Caliphate of the Fulani is situated in Sokoto. So when you understand, since ever Nigeria had their independence, it is them that produces the leader of the Islamic movement in Nigeria. No matter how dedicated, how committed you are, whether you are Yoruba or other ethnic nationality, and you practice Islam, you cannot be given the opportunity. Now the question is, why is it the statutory right or reserved absolutely, completely for the Sokoto Caliphate? With the influence the Sokoto Caliphate wields, it spreads across other ethnic nationalities, other regions, and that is exactly what they are trying to establish, that they can control the Yoruba culture. They can term the Yoruba Obaship to be subject to them. Why? Because if they're able to get the Yorubas who are loyal to them, Islamic Yorubas who are loyal to the Caliphate, the Fulani Caliphate in Sokoto, then it means they have been able to divide the Yoruba kingdom. They have been able to divide the Yoruba dynasty, the Yoruba monarchical system of control, of governorship, of traditional rulership. Why? Because they will begin to lose the Yorubas will now be paying more allegiance to the Fulani Caliphate in Sokoto, to the Sultan in Sokoto, rather than preserving their own culture and tradition above religious sentiment. You see, religion is alien to Africa. So you cannot erode your culture. You cannot wipe off the Yoruba culture in order to protect an alien culture, an alien religion. Yorubas are known to be traditional. You have their traditional worshippers of Ifa, of the rest of them, Shongo and the rest of them. But with this move being sponsored by the Fulani Caliphate, Sultan of Sokoto, under the auspices of Islamic Supreme Council Affairs or whatever is being known, it will weaken the strength, the influence of the Yorubas monarchical system of leadership, thereby paving way, giving room, opportunity for the Fulani to wield their influence over the Yoruba land. By so doing, Yoruba is captured. Yoruba land is captured. It's just a matter of time. Give it in the next decade, if this is implemented, you begin to see that important issues bordering on culture, politics, within the Yoruba land will now be decided by the Sultan of Sokoto based on his recommendation or directive. People who are loyal to him will begin to exert influence on whatever instructions or commands coming from the caliphate rather than adherence to the Yoruba traditions or monarchical system, thereby weakening the potency of Yoruba culture and traditional monarchical system of leadership. And once that happens, the Obaship arrangement within the Yoruba now will be compromised. You see, more Obas will not be paying allegiance to the Fulanis. These are custodians of Yoruba culture. They are custodians of tradition. And this is what they dread most. No wonder Gani Adams, the Kakamfo of the Yoruba warlords, or the commander of the Yoruba warriors, is now coming to say, we don't accept the influence, the imposition of Sharia, because it's an extension of the Fulani Caliphate on the Yoruba territory. It's a way of conquest, it's a way of dominance, it's a way of expanding their rule, their influence. Once they're able to establish this, just for instance, instructions and commands is from Ilorin, comes from the Sultan, the Caliphate. So whatever the Sultan instructs or directive given by the Sultan will be adhered by those rulers within the or Ilorin or Kwara as a whole. So what does that mean? It will dampen the confidence of the Yorubas on their religious and traditional heritage and will empower the Fulani dominance within the Yoruba. Now, you see now among the Yoruba population, one will be paying allegiance to the caliphate, while a selected few will remain with the Obaship. And you know what this means? They will continue to push and expand to the point that now they have the majority. Once they capture the majority of the Yorubas or Islam within the Southwest, now they begin to decide the outcome of any politicking, the outcome of any decision, important decisions within the Yoruba territory. Now, the influence of the Oba, like I have mentioned them, the Oba of Ife, which is the custodian of the Yoruba tradition and culture, will be weakened. So this battle now is between the Ooni of Ife and the Sultan of Sokoto. This tussle of supremacy, because they understood what is playing out. If they're able to divide the Yoruba land or people with religion, they will be able to penetrate and capture the entire system. And once that is done, they will now use religion to influence every other decisions, both the culture, Yoruba culture. Of course, you've had its most recent time that some members of the traditional worshippers of Isese was stoned and sustained several injuries by suspected Islamic radicals, Islamic fundamentalists from the southwestern region. You know what that means? This is the way they will begin to fight the Yoruba culture and tradition. They begin to fight the Yoruba system or cultural dynasty. And if that is sustained, you begin to see that the Yoruba culture will continue to disappear or diminish gradually. Why? Because as they expand and front their agendas or under Islamic connotation or hiding under the disguise of Islam, they will also push their culture to the Yorubas, which I believe because of the sentiments, religious sentiments, most of them will adopt it, just like Sharia. Some Yorubas, Obas, has been calling for the implementation, adoption of Sharia In the Yoruba land, what does that mean? Even those obas or monarch are now paying allegiance to the Sultan of Sokoto. Already, the monarchical system is weakened, has been infiltrated, and it is just a matter of time. The holistic approach will be engaged, and this will ensure that the Yorubas will now pay allegiance to the Sultan of Sokoto. And if that happens, the influence of Ooni of Ife, the custodian of the Yoruba culture and tradition, will weaken. In fact, a time will come, if not checked as is now, the Ooni of Ife will now be less influential, less superior to Sultan of Sokoto. Why? Because the time will come, he will give order and people will ignore it. The Yorubas themselves will ignore it on the basis of religious loyalty and affinity as against their cultural heritage or the monarchical system of leadership or traditional leadership in the Yoruba land. Once this is achieved, then there is no other thing that needed for them to establish the full influence of the Sultan or the Islamic Caliphate or the Fulani Caliphate in the southwest. That is the way to conquer and to subdue the people. And now you see that most of the Yoruba Muslim faithfuls are now saying, why should they not produce the governor of Lagos State? Why is it that most of the majority of the governors in the southwest are Christians? They are not feeling that inferiority complex, that no, they should be given equitable, of course, share in who becomes the governor of the states within the Yoruba land. What does that mean? That they will begin to push for political control, economic control, on the basis of religious alignment, not to defend the Yoruba culture and belief. You know what that means? That poses a very strong disaster and catastrophe for the Yoruba monarchical system and preservation of their culture. Why? Because over time, one will influence or overshadow the other, and that will be the Sultan of Sokoto. The influence of Sultan of Sokoto, as is being seen today, that issues of importance in Nigeria is decided based on religion. That's why, even though he has no political appointment, it's not recognized by the Constitution. And sometimes he will make certain influence. He works certain influence that controls the outcome of whosoever becomes the president of Nigeria. Yes, he's been consulted widely. Whosoever that want to be the president or want to aspire or contest for the office of the president and other important office that want to lobby will pay allegiance to Sultan of Sokoto. He is not bigger than the Ooni of Ife, otherwise, except Ooni of Ife consider him more greater than him in terms of hierarchy and the rest of them. He is the Sultan of Sokoto, the Fulani Caliphate. We have the Ooni of Ife, who is the custodian of Yoruba culture and tradition. You also have in the Igbo land the Ezes. You see, the monarchical system who controls the culture and protects the heritage of the people. The same thing happens to other ethnic nationalities. So for him, a certain influence and dominance, it means this is quite interesting as it continues to unfold. Why? Because it is targeted at something. Already is pushing that idea of unfair treatment for the Islamic faithfuls within the southwest, the Yoruba land. So he's going to get more sympathy from the locals who believe he is fighting to defend their own rights and their own interests. As that expands, They will no longer pay attention to Yoruba culture and tradition as a way of deciding certain actions or outcomes within the Yoruba territory. And that will pose a great danger to the Yoruba tradition and culture. So the dominance now, who is greater? Is it the Sultan of Sokoto or the Ooni of Ife? Because as times rolls by, many things continue to unfold. Just of recent, you see the way the Sultan of Sokoto berated the southwestern governors, telling them that they don't know what they're doing, that the constitution empowers and backs their action, that Sharia law or implementation must be sustained in the southwest, in the Yoruba land, which means he's now wielding his influence beyond the control of the governors. Now, if he can now silence the governors, then who are the traditional monarchs which are being appointed by the governors? Most traditional leadership or monarchical systems is subject to the control of the governors. So if the governors cannot resist this and tell the Sultan, this is our people, we have control over this region, and you don't force that Sharia on us, on our people, then it means the battle is almost done with the Yoruba dominance. Control. Some people might not agree with this, except for few who can reason beyond their nose, who can see ahead of time what is playing out, who can envisage what exactly where they are heading to and where they are at this time. So for me, based on my own opinion and observations, what is playing out is just the same thing that happened to the Hausa brothers or ethnic nationalities, how they lost the control of the Hausas within their own territory. You see now, the Fulanis are in control of Hausa territory. Formerly, the Hausa dominated regions. Now, they are controlled, even the monarchical system, leadership, is now controlled by the Sultan of Sokoto, the Fulani Caliphate, and they enthrone their own emirs, councils, emirate councils, and the rest of them. So which means no decision can be taken by any Sariki in the north without the express permission of the Fulani Caliphate. That is just what is playing out in the southwest, but some persons do not understand, and some are being indecisive about the matter. But whatever happens, time will continue to unfold or reveal several mysteries and secrets surrounding this latest move and advocacy. Let's get to know what is your own take regarding this development. It's an interesting moment, of course, in history, and everybody must pay rapt attention to the Yorubas who cares to preserve their own cultural heritage, and posterity or culture must understand what is going on, or perhaps do whatever they believe is in the interest of preserving their cultural heritage and monarchical system of leadership. Otherwise, it will definitely be replaced by the Fulani Caliphate or monarchical system of administration. It is such step after the other, but whether they are moving towards that irreversible end of exclusive dominance and subjugation, well, you have to wait for that. But not until that happens. Let's get to know your own suggestions and reactions regarding this latest development.